internal audit and performance audit. The PAP has not put in place a proper register to make sure that all these audit and performance reports are accessible in order to submit the CAPA report. Another point is the regular reconciliation of supplier accounts. Management did not implement the following processes to ensure accurate and complete reporting: regular project reconciliations in the management of partner contribution, regular reconciliations of supply accounts, regular reconciliation of stock, regular updating of the asset register, and bank reconciliations prepared, including long outstanding reconciling items dating as far back as 2014. We also have noted some irregularities in the internal operations. The regular project reconciliations, the management of partner contribution were not kept. Recommendation: the PAP management should ascertain the causes of the differences noted and make necessary adjustments to the financial statements. Expenditure incurred should regularly be reconciled to partner fund revenue recognized in order to avoid such differences in the future. More details should also be included in the general ledger in order to allow for an easier reconciliation between expenditure incurred and partner fund revenue recognized. There should be more effective supervision over the recording of financial transactions and the preparation of financial statements. Mr. President, I would like to now discuss the audit report of the management of the plenary which took place in Sharm el-Sheikh. As you know, the Pan-African Parliament was invited by the government of the Arab Republic of Egypt, which had hosted the session of October 2016 in Sharm el-Sheikh. And we worked with the Department of Finance on the documents which were submitted to us. And following that oversight, we noted that there is an incomplete implementation of the accommodation agreement between the PAP and the Egyptian Parliament. I think an agreement was signed between the Egyptian Parliament and the Pan-African Parliament for the hosting of the third ordinary session of the fourth Parliament. The committee noted that PAP had initiated expenses on certain items, some expenses which were to be taken care of by the Egyptian Parliament. So we saw that there was dual expenditure. Now, the Egyptian Parliament was to make available a certain number of support staff to the Pan-African Parliament, including protocol staff during the entire period of the session to receive the members of the Pan-African Parliament and look after the protocol formalities. We noted that this clause of the agreement was not complied with. We also have the amount paid to the support staff of Egyptian origin. The other point is that there were vehicles hired and paid for by PAP. An amount of $7,200 was paid by the PAP for transportation services during the session. And this is in total contradiction to the provisions of item number 7 of the annex to the signed agreement between the PAP and the Egyptian Parliament. Other comments of the committee. In PAP, we went to Egypt in the belief that we would save more money than that was actually saved. The language used in the above response by the PAP management sounds very defensive and suspicious. We also have the non-adherence to proper internal control practice in the procurement of transportation services in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. President, I think that I will now move to the recommendations of the report. CAPA submits a set of recommendations, but we have indeed noted that these recommendations have not actually been implemented. And this, of course, gave rise to certain discussions during our committee session. Finally, I'd like to talk about the difficulties encountered. The Internal Audit Committee is facing the following problems. The lack of qualified staff, refusal of PAP to give the necessary information and support the auditor in time as provided for by the rules. And we also have the refusal or delay by the management in discussing reports produced by the internal auditors. For instance, the report on Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, which was submitted to PAP management by the internal auditors in May 2017, was still not discussed or responded to as at the time of the committee sittings in August 2017. Meanwhile, the AU Audit Regulations 2012 requires that responses must be provided on internal audit reports within 10 working days, failing which the auditors could finalize the same. As I had said earlier, the non-implementation of audit recommendations, follow-up matrices prepared by the internal auditors and submitted to the management of the PAP are either not responded to at all, or responses are only provided very close to the committee sittings. Even when the reports are provided, supporting documents are not given to the auditors to enable them to verify the stated status of implementation of audit and CAPA recommendations. The challenges. The major challenge limiting the work of CAPA, like many other committees, is inadequate funding. It has been observed that one reason for funds not being adequately available to committees has been traced to support staff crowding out the committees. We've also noted that the number of support staff has increased tremendously from one session to the other. Mr. President, honorable members of the Bureau, this is a brief overview of the Audit Committee, and I'm ready to address your questions and comments. I thank you.
merci, Monsieur le
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Chairperson. The report presented is submitted for discussions. The first name on my list is Honorable Wamba Warkia of Burkina Faso. Honorable Wamba Warkia. Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the floor first. First of all, I would like to commend and thank the members of CAPA for their availability and their work. But at the same time, I would like to ask the following. Given the recommendations that were made in the past report, and given the shortcomings and difficulties noted in this report, I would like to know what kind of sanctions have been taken for example, when I take the case of Sharm el-Sheikh, where there were lots of very obvious shortcomings. I'd like to know if any sanctions or any measures have been taken against those who were identified, or are there plans to do so? I believe that silence itself comes with a certain amount of guilt, and those who are concerned by these measures should pay for their lack of collaboration and for their faults. But even if PAP does not execute them, but implement them, but at least we need to take the right measures against these people for those shortcomings. Thank you. Honorable Sidya Jatta from the Gambia next.
Sidya.
Honorable Sidya Jatta from the Gambia.
For correctly pronouncing my name, it's Sidya. First, I must begin by saying that this institution, as an oversight institution, should not be found wanting in any respect. We must be a model to all the other organs of the AU, because our responsibility is to ensure that whatever is done at the level of AU in terms of finance and other activities is done to serve the supreme interests of the African continent. And that is why I'm particularly interested for the committee to further highlight on issues raised on page 8, particularly issue Roman number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 8. Mr. Speaker, till these items are further explained to my understanding. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. La parole à l'autre.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ali Sanfo from Burkina Faso. Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the floor. I would like to thank CAPA for the work well done. We all know that this type of activity is complex, but they managed to produce a report that enables us to see how our house is kept. I said earlier that there is need for an oversight structure to ensure good governance. Having said this, CAPA, in its report, produced different observations and analyses. It also made recommendations. It was indicated that the report refers to staff members who refuse to cooperate and provide some information. I want us to have more details on this. As regards the recommendation on the management of certain headings, such information is not sufficient, and I'd like to know about the sanctions, or the state of sanctions, or the implementation of these sanctions as provided for in our rules. Now, what are the decisions made following these recommendations? Thank you. I give the floor to Honorable Jacqueline Mohangari from Rwanda. Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the floor. Mr. President, dear colleagues, first, I wish to congratulate the Audit Committee CAPA, as chaired by Honorable Chorumbera. I would like to congratulate these committee members for this report. This report is well prepared, and it was well presented to us. The committee took time to look for the details, and it made observations and recommendations on public accounts. However, I seek some clarifications. First, we wish to have more information on the last plenary session held in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. As from page 25, we highlighted a number of anomalies. I wish to seize this opportunity to congratulate Egypt for hosting the plenary session of PAP. They spared no efforts so that PAP members could carry out their business in an effective and efficient manner. Since that was a first experience, we would like that experience to be an example for other sessions that may take place outside our headquarters. We would like the chair of this committee and the committee members, we wish that they could clarify to us the anomalies and the weaknesses that were observed during that session so that we can deal with them in the future. Another question is related to page 8. In page 8, the report notes the key questions, the key issues addressed by CAPA. There is the consideration of the financial statements of PAP. On the basis of this report, I can see that some supporting documents were not given to the committee. I wish to put this question to PAP clerk. I find it normal that he is responsible for the administration, for the monitoring and evaluation, responsible for the implementation of the budget. I would like that all the services support the clerk in good faith. Appropriate information needs to be given to the people working in these services and who ensure the sound management of PAP accounts. I can probably refer to 21 of our rules of procedure on accounts and verification. It is clearly indicated that accounts, the accounts of PAP and all other financial statements must be verified at the end of each financial year by an auditor appointed by the Bureau. It also refers to the fact that the clerk should ensure the good keeping of these financial statements and other supporting documents, and that he ensures oversight, and there are obviously staff members in his who are responsible for this. So there must be responsibility, good faith, integrity are essential requirements. The capacity building of PAP staff members is very necessary, but we need to create this goodwill and this integrity. PAP staff ensure the continuation of the PAP business. Politicians come and go, but staff are there. They are the collective memory of this institution. Mr. President, once again, I wish to congratulate CAPA for this well-prepared report. But once again, internal auditing has to be done, and we need to respect the independence of internal auditors, and we need to reinforce the capacity of this department. Anomalies have been identified, but in a report we also expect the positive changes that took place to be able to see whether the recommendations made by the plenary are observed and that some positive progress has been made. Mr. President, I thank you for facilitating the work of CAPA. But we believe that the way is still long ahead of us. Yesterday, we discussed the role of the PAP Bureau in the financial management of our administration. We need to avoid any conflict of interest, and the clerk should be in charge of the implementation of our budget. Thank you, dear colleague. I give now the floor to Honorable Mohammed Al-Mukhtar Hassan Hussein from Sudan.
Mokhtar n'est pas dans la salle.
Mukhtar is not with us. I give the floor to Honorable Dr. Hunadi Mateme from South Africa. You have the floor.
Mr. President, members of the Bureau, members of this august House, thank you very much for this opportunity. First and foremost, Mr. President, on behalf of the government of South Africa and its people, I would like to appreciate the kind words which members expressed in this House as far as their security is concerned. Mr. President, after hearing that, I also personally slept very peacefully. Mr. President, I'm not sure whether it is by design or what. Looks like on this list of speakers, I am the only member of CAPA, and I must say, on behalf of the people of the continent and all these other countries, I am prepared to take the bullet. Mr. President, I would humbly request this august House that we need not shoot the messenger. I'm humbly requesting that we need not shoot the messenger. What this report is saying, through the sweat and effort of the members of this committee who sacrificed, they came here a week earlier to come and apply themselves and identify the real challenges that bedevil our operations as the Pan-African Parliament. Mr. President, where I come from, we say a problem identified is a problem solved. Mr. President, as the reporter or the presenter indicated, that the terrain for this committee is very broad. But I'm encouraged by those members of this House who took time to go through the report and identified areas of interest and areas of concern. Mr. President, I must confide in you and say, as CAPA, we agreed that we must lay the foundation for future administrations in this Parliament to work properly, Mr. President, and that will be a legacy of your term of office. To summarize, Mr. President, what bedevils operations in the Pan-Africanist Parliament is the fact that there are no consequences for wrongdoing. Now, with proper leadership, Mr. President, with proper leadership, we are encouraged that consequences will soon be in place. We need not forget, Mr. President, that as this Parliament, we've been without head of administration for some time. And now we do have clerk of this Parliament, we do have a deputy, and what we have seen is that better days are here. Mr. President, certain fundamentals need to be in place. Certain fundamentals need to be in place, Mr. President. In my own view, they say is my pet subject in the committee. Our system of budgeting must be revisited. For some time now, but we learn, we learn from the AU. Incremental type of budgeting is not assisting the Pan-African Parliament very much. It is indicated in the report that some of the budget lines are there year in, year out. And some of those budget lines are seldom depleted, they are seldom utilized. Whereas, Mr. President, if we could follow the zero-based type of budgeting, we would not have this type of a situation, Mr. President. We are also aware, Mr. President, that the incremental type of budgeting is what the AU is practicing, Mr. President, but nothing stops us as this Parliament to drive it from the back seat, to introduce innovations which will benefit not only this Parliament, but will benefit all the other organs of the Pan-Africanist Parliament. Mr. President, I can see that maybe my time is over, but I would really feel we need to do justice to this report. Every shortcoming, in the medical language, I would say, every illness identified, we have made recommendations here. That is why we're saying, as CAPA, we have laid the foundation for effective administration going forward, Mr. President. And on behalf, I think, of CAPA, that is our message, that is our contribution to the development of Africa and its people. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam MP. L'Honorable.
Give the floor now to Honorable El Hadji Diaw Kante from Guinea-Conakry. I thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I've been asking myself whether I should intervene or not, because I received this report this morning, and I said to myself that I would follow the presentation and make observations. Unfortunately, we had only a summary, but not an entire presentation. The third reason is this. This is an audit report of 75 pages is too long. This is not an accountant report. I'm a little bit discouraged to see whether I should intervene, because I do not understand this. I recall that in terms of Article 3 that created CAPA, it is clearly indicated that CAPA should rely on the reports of internal auditing and external auditing to do its work. The first question I'm raising is whether CAPA has access to these reports. Its role is not related to the entire management. There is an internal audit and an external audit that should submit reports. And we need to consider the realities on the ground to see whether these reports are in compliance with those realities. I'm not sure whether CAPA had access to these internal audit reports or external audit reports. I ran through certain pages and I realized that in page 11 there is a reference there is a table there, and we talk about the difference. I looked at the discrepancies and I could not understand this. Sometimes there are missing elements and sometimes all of this is put in the same column. For instance, the reference to GIZ, so they have the amount received and the expenditure, and there is a difference of over 5,000. This is not the same thing with regards to BC PANAF, because we have 98, and so when we have amounts that are lower or higher, the accounting is not the same. This means that we need to have two accounts two columns to better understand this. I looked at other parts of the report where we talk about stock. The people working in this committee seem to use a different language. We do not find the same language in French and in English. In French, we talk about stock when we refer to physical elements. In brief, there are so many things that make it difficult for me to understand the report. And for this particular reason, I prefer not to give further details. I thank you. Thank you, dear colleague. I give the floor now to Honorable Aminata Niang from Mauritania.
Aminata Niang n'étant pas là, je donne la parole à Honorable.
Since Aminata Niang is not there, I give the floor to Honorable Senator Pilar Jombe Jangani from Equatorial Guinea.
Honorable Pilar, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for giving me the floor. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the initiative of Your Excellency and congratulate the team of CAPA for a job well done with regards to the auditing. This system should have been working from the beginning because it would allow us to know if the transparency exists or not of our great home, which is the Pan-African Parliament. As one colleague has said before, I have just received the document, and from what I have been able to read, I believe that some of the issues mentioned here is the percentage of African countries that contribute financially to our institution, and at least name them and to try to encourage others to contribute or to contribute more to the Pan-African Parliament. And this parliament belongs to our entire continent. I'd like to encourage Your Excellency, Mr. President, to adopt the necessary measures to encourage African countries to give the information with regards to their contributions and to what the donations have been assigned to.
Collègue, la parole à l'honorable.
Thank you, dear colleague. I give the floor now to Honorable Abdurazak Saad Namdas from Nigeria. You have the floor, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, I commend the efforts of the committee for a job well done, but I'm confused whether I should also commend, because the report appears to have indicted the management. For example, if you look at page 9, it says 7.1, PAP management did not implement adequate proper record-keeping controls to ensure that complete, relevant, and accurate information is accessible and available on a timely basis to support financial statements. And the Deputy Chair also said efforts was made to get information and it was not provided. I thought we cannot also rely so much on the report, because assuming they get the information, the probability is that more revelations will have come out. Now they are relying on the little they have. And therefore, I would say, Mr. President, that there is need for us to look inwards. This report is indictful. We should have a good management that should have been able to appear to be transparent and be able to listen to auditors. But if people are concealing information, then I think there's a problem here. If people cannot even tell us what the South African government has actually contributed, and we are all aware that the South African government have done so much, and I think we should be here from other countries to also try to say, okay, our big brother has done so much. We should be able to applaud. But if such information cannot be disclosed, it is unfortunate that we are still lagging behind. Mr. President, let me just sit down. I think more needs to be done on this matter.
Merci.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. I give the floor now to Honorable Mohammed Mubarak Montaka from Ghana.
Mr. President, let me also add my voice in congratulating our colleagues from CAPA for a thorough work done. Let me say, Mr. President, I spent the whole of last night trying to go through this report, and frankly speaking, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep because, as PAP, what we've seen in this report, if we are not careful, could be the beginning of our end. Why am I talking about the beginning of our end? We are having a major challenge trying to get countries to rectify so that we could get the legislative powers and the independence that it requires. We are having challenges from AUC in budget allocations. There have been times donors had to withdraw because of how we spend their money. And I thought, after a decade, and especially after all the work that was done by, what do you call it, external auditors that we recruited sometime 3, 4, 5 years ago, we should be seeing huge improvement. Mr. President, I just want to draw the attention of the members of the committee whether these were not anomalies and if they could correct them. If you look at paragraph 2.11, I think that's page 5, you said the Board of External Auditors of AU for the period 31st December 2017. Are you referring to 2016 or 2017? Because we are not yet at the end of 2017. I think you need to look at that. You also made reference to the 2017 work plan of the Office of Internal Audit, the auditor. I am worried because I think that the CAPA should be getting this document, this work plan, in 2016 so that you can follow what they are doing in 2017. You should be taking that of 2018 now so that as we enter 2018, you can be following to see how the internal auditor is carrying out his work. you cannot be taking the work plan of 2017 in August and October of 2017 when the year is almost ended. So I think that CAPA should look at that. If you look at the issues, Mr. President, if we want to itemize them, I believe that it will be tantamount to recapping the whole report. But the points of worry are just too many. Because if, as a PAP, an organ that is seeking to play an oversight role, its own internal mechanisms exposes it that we are incapable of even keeping proper stocks. The store, we can't even keep a proper store. So there are discrepancies. We cannot prepare a very good financial statement as PAP. That creates a lot of problems for us. You see so many difficulties. But what I would just want to say, Mr. President, and I want to urge colleagues, look, if we don't fix this one, if we don't muster the courage to go head on with this problem, believe me, it will be the beginning of a failure. And the failure will come to all of us, whether you are in the bureau or whether you came only yesterday or whether you've been here 10 years ago. The failure will come to all of us. And even if you have retired from Pan-Africa and you are sitting home, why am I saying this? If you look at what happened in Egypt, the Sharm el-Sheikh, members, let's insist to set up a PAP committee to investigate thoroughly all the happenings in Egypt. Let's not wash it, let's not brush it aside. Let's not leave it to CAPA alone. Let's set an independent committee to interrogate what happened in Sharm el-Sheikh. Because for officers that we recruit to muster the courage to refuse to give our internal auditor the necessary documentation, it means that there are a lot of things that are rotten, that are covered. We need to unearth all of them so that we'll be able to clearly put mechanism. Should we decide tomorrow to go to Ghana or to go to another country for a session, we will have carved for ourselves a clear method how we are going to embark on that. If we don't do this and we assume this is just as usual, business as usual, believe me, the next time we'll make an attempt to have a session in another country, the disaster will be worse than this. So I'm suggesting that at the tail end of this, let's move and get a committee to investigate not only the abnormalities in expenditures, but also the procedures. Because if a country decides to host and have agreed on the number of things that they should do, we should not be seeing expenditures around them. If there were real challenges why it happened, let us know, so that the next time we prevent it. Colleagues, let's not brush these things aside. But these are some of my recommendations that I think we need to take very seriously if we'll be able to make serious progress. CAPA should not only be giving us annual reports. I know how tedious it is because I've been part of CAPA before. I know how difficult it is to even get resources from the management for members of CAPA to assemble here. I know, but let's push hard to make sure that in every session you'll be able to give us mid-year reports so that we don't wait for 12 months. We take every 6 months and begin to deal with it. I think that's one way that will help us. So, Mr. President, you need to get a special funding for CAPA to be able to do this. Second, I think that all staff, including drivers, should have performance contract. You have agreed to work here. These are the terms and conditions. This year that we are entering 2018, this is what we expect from you. It should be spelled out to you in a language that you understand, in a document that you sign. So that at the tail end of the year, we'll review and see how much of performance have you had. So if you are a storekeeper and you cannot balance your stock, no one needs to tell you that you need to be shown the exit to leave, because then you don't fit to work for an organization such as PAP. So I think that every staff should be able to have performance contract, so that we use that performance contract to judge the individual performance, so that it doesn't become a general blanket, whilst others are working very hard You can see some of the staff, they are stretching themselves, working very hard to improve the image of PAP. Yet others are lazing around. And yet when the blame comes, it is thrown to all of them, as if all of them are not doing the work. Let us be able to zero down and congratulate those who are working hard, and be able to punish those who are lazy, and those who are not ready to change. We show them the exit so that they leave this place, and we get more competent people to be able to help us to ramp up. Thirdly, Mr. President, I sincerely think we need to have a clear policy on how we recruit supporting staff, how we engage supporting staff, because the trend is becoming dangerous. If you look at page 31 of the report, the English version, if you look at page 31, and you look at table 13, you will see a very funny scenario that within 1 year, March 2016 to March 2017, locals that have been engaged as supporting staff moved from 77, and then in August it moved to 103, and then in March, that's March 2016, 77, August 2016, 103, March 2017, 104. You come to international, those that we have to give them plain fares to come. March 2016, 42, August 2016, 60, March 2017, 83, giving us a total of our 187. Now, look at page 32, table 15, the English version. You will see a very shock scenario. You will see that the number of supporting staff for plenary is alarming. May 2016, you had 109. That's for plenary. October 2016, that's local staff. You have 122. May 2017, you have 111. Look at my emphasis, the international. Those that we have to spend so much to get them here, just look at it. May 2016, 88. October 2016, 29. Then, for whatever reason, in May 2017, it moved to 136. Meaning that in May 2017, in the plenary, we as an organization chose to give 136 people to fare them by plane to come and do the work that we could easily get people here to do. This clearly shows that we will have to have a clear policy on how we engage supporting staff. Colleagues, with a greater respect, I will be happy to bring 100 people from Ghana to come and be supporting staff. All of us, many of us, keep struggling to get some persons from their country to come and serve. Yesterday, I said this thing here. I think, with a greater respect to all of us, we need to change our mindset. Once we are elected to come here as members of PAP, we should begin to water down our deep affiliation to our home country. Our affiliation should not be, once we are here, to the African continent. And stop this behavior of, once you are here, all your attention is that you want to be seen to be good. So you want to fight to bring so many people from your home country. You want to fight to get so many people from your home country being as members of the management without regards to competence. You will not be doing Africa any good. You will not be doing Africa any good. Let us watch that behavior of all of us, because we are sinking down the image of this organization that could serve as a pivot to salvage the people of Africa. So my colleagues, I am sincerely very worried about what I have seen in this report. And I want to believe that all of us who have had the opportunity of reading the report thoroughly will equally be worried. Let us not just sweep it, because after the management, they think that after 2 weeks, all of us will be gone. Please, let's point to them. Whether we are here or in our home country, we really mean business. And this is a starting point. Let's set up a committee, investigate thoroughly Egypt, and let's make sure that all the aberrations, we give people time to correct themselves. By next year, where we have performance contract, when people fail, let us muster the courage to punish them. I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Merci beaucoup, cher.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. I call on Honorable Daniel. I thank you, Honorable President, for giving me the floor. I will not say much because most of the comments that were made earlier referred or raised all the concerns that I had. However, I will not repeat what was already said, but I must say thank you to all those who have taken the floor before me because they have made very relevant observations. I would like also to thank CAPA, which has been able to identify some difficulties in terms of the management of all the institutions. There are some speakers who said, one speaker in particular, who said that this is not a real accounting report. I could also say the same thing because CAPA has indicated the difficulties that we are facing, problems that we are facing, which supposes or implies that even as concerns the recommendations that have been proposed, there are things that have not been said. They have listed the recommendations, but they didn't tell us how these recommendations can be followed up and implemented. This idea also of saying that this is a descriptive report where there are still a lot of problems and even institutional problems. Our colleague from Ghana has just said it, and he has well said it. He has really well said it. So here, what we could suggest to you is that it is necessary to carry out a financial inquiry or a financial investigation in order for the responsibilities at the level of these various difficulties that have been referred to that be identified. These responsibilities should be identified. Second, in the financial investigation, it is necessary also to tell us how the recommendations which have been listed here could be implemented. And if it is necessary to carry out reforms for that or some adjustments at the institutional level, because there is at the level of the President and the General Secretariat, there is probably a lack of supervision of the finance, while probably the President does not have all the prerogatives in this area. So we say that if there should be any institutional adjustments, PAP should be the reflection of all member states, because here we would like to be a legislative, to become a legislative institution. So we shouldn't leave with these shortcomings relative to the management of this institution. So here is what I had to say, and I would like to insist on this, on the need of an investigation committee, which was already referred by other speakers, in order to change the management of this institution. It's not a matter of multiplying our financial resources, our burden, but it's true that there are some problems, but all these difficulties, all these problems should be well identified through an investigation, a financial investigation committee, and solutions be proposed. Thank you, dear colleague. Now I give the floor to Mr. Mohamed Tayyib Laskri from Algeria. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, vice presidents, dear colleagues, good morning. When reading the report of CAPA, there emerges a lot of interrogations, as it has been referred to by a certain number of colleagues. First, I would like to start with a first direct question to members of CAPA, or to the chairperson of CAPA, who refers in page 3 to the mandate for which this committee has been established by PAP, that is, the consideration of external and direct auditors' report, and also to exercise all the functions that are related to the execution of the mandate. The direct question is whether CAPA had to exercise any additional functions, or whether it was faced with any difficulties in exercising the functions. So this is the fundamental question. The second question, or the second item that I would like to refer to, is that in the previous ordinary session, where the report of CAPA was presented and adopted, and which included a certain number of recommendations, a certain number of important recommendations, because if we recall, CAPA was established in order to audit and mention the shortcomings in the administrative and financial administration management, in order to improve the management. While it is mentioned in the present report that, and I think this was referred to in page 55, it is referred by CAPA, the non-implementation of the functions, of the auditing functions. So question which was already asked is that did we provide all the prerogatives to CAPA in order for it to achieve the objectives that we have set ourselves, that is the improvement of the financial and administrative management of the Pan-African Parliament? Another direct question to the chairperson of CAPA, on page 55, you're referring to a recommendation, you recommend to strengthen the audit function of PAP. I'm asking myself whether, Mike, please. Can I proceed, Mr. Chairman? 1 minute. So, couldn't CAPA play this role of this audit instrument, that is, instead of confining to the consideration of reports and list recommendations, to carry out real auditing work? That is, to do the audit itself. And this is part of the mandate of CAPA, because this is part of the third function of CAPA. And in this report, and also you mentioned the difficulties that are faced, that is difficulties for PAP staff to provide you with information, and also the refusal of submission of reports, and the non-implementation of the recommendations. So the question through which I would like to conclude my intervention is, why then did we establish CAPA? What's the use of establishing CAPA? Thank you. I give the floor now to Honorable Jeanette Kabila from the DRC. No purpose. I give the floor now to Claude A.M. Kamenda from Sierra Leone. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I join other speakers to thank CAPA for the report presented to the House. The primary powers or functions of PAP, as stated in Rule 4.1a, is to oversee. And again, the primary powers of PAP in Rule 5a is to oversee. To oversee, to ensure effectiveness. Mr. President, honorable members, I will take two concerns. One on the internal audit, as stated in 1.5, and asset or management register, as stated in 7.4. Mr. President, honorable members, internal audit unit is very important in every institution, and the Executive Council of the AU authorized the establishment of the internal unit here at PAP in 2007. Mr. President, in 1.5.3, the responsibility of internal unit is clearly stated. Charged with reviewing the internal control systems, processes, and procedures, shall provide independent and objective appraisal of the activities, shall help all organs to accomplish their strategic objectives. But Mr. President, honorable member, let's go to page 43 of the report, the challenges of the internal audit unit, as stated in 15.1. It is a clear neglect of the internal unit. If we actually want to control our expenditure or put this PAP onto better footing, then we need to respect the internal audit. We need to keep the life ongoing of the internal audit. See what it states in 15.12. 1, inadequate staffing. Only 2 staff. But yet still, we are bringing on board more than 180 local staff or supporting staff. And then yet still, the private internal audit unit. Reluctance, refusal of PAP staff to provide data and support to the auditors timely and in manner statutorily required. Refusal of management to establish a budget line. There's not even a budget line. How do we expect this unit to work? I'm believing before the internal auditors come, the internal audit need to do its job accordingly. Then now that it will put a better position of PAP. C3, refusal or delay management in discussing even the report. The various sectors at PAP don't even discuss the report of the internal audit, neither even respond to the internal audit. This is the shape for us as an institution, as the power of PAP in Rule 4 says it's to oversee. In Rule 5, our power is to oversee. If we can't oversee our own institution, how can we go out there to oversee other institutions of the AU? How can we invite other organs of the AU to oversee them when we can't even respect our own rules in the House? Non-implementation of the audit recommendation, just imagine. And then we want other institutions to implement the recommendations of this House. We must start to correct ourselves in the House. And I want to strongly recommend that a budget line be established for the internal audit, and that each and every unit at PAP must respond to the queries of internal audit. the last speaker did say from Ghana, there are no consequences for people of their misdeeds. If there are consequences, if you don't respond to the internal auditor or the audit report, then we should be better placed. And lastly, withholding of benefit of staff due to staff, we are actually killing the internal audit unit. Mr. President, please stand up, please get up and work. Let's set the pace for the new bureau to come. We must put this internal audit ongoing, then it will be placed better. Thank you.
Merci.
I thank you, dear colleague. I would like that before we carry on, to read out to you the provisions of our rules of procedure, which you are supposed all to be familiar with. Attributions of the Bureau. It is said the Bureau has the following attributions: the management of the administration of the Pan-African Parliament and its organs, full stop. Further on, it says the clerk reads the clerk. The clerk is the accounting officer of the budget. He steers the General Secretariat and he is responsible for issues of accounting before Parliament. The clerk manages administrative issues on a daily basis. And yesterday, why I'm saying that? Yesterday, we discussed the new protocol. And in the new protocol, they've gone even further. So outside the fact that the Secretariat manages administration finance, it is underscored that the clerk of PAP is the accounting officer of the Parliament. Somebody raised that. This is to say that an institutional reform, considering our texts themselves, is very important, because when the Bureau does not know how the budget is managed, this is why I said that our text was drafted by office staff who are not familiar with the management of a parliament. So we will still be faced with these kind of problems. But I want to recall how or what is envisaged by our rules of procedure. Legally, I give the floor now. I give the floor to Honorable Ahmed Taib Ahmed, who is a member of the committee. Could you please, I thank you, Mr. President. The chairman of the chairman of CAPA, being here, has asked me to answer the questions later on. Thank you. I give the floor now to Honorable Professor Uganga Lachigo Maurice from Uganda.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and honorable colleagues. I would like to start by thanking the CAPA for the work they have done. But I would also like to request this august House that an organization that is dependent on donor support, when it is discussing financial matters, it is absolutely important for those who have made contributions that we are talking about in our expenditure records, that they are recognized, because then it gives them encouragement that when they contribute, their contributions are recognized. When a report like this is discussed and none of the donor institutions are reflected, it just means that we are ungrateful, and that is very un-African. Mr. President, I would like to associate myself with the contributions of Honorable Muntaka, Honorable Senator Jangani, and Honorable Dr. Mateme. I recognize that Honorable Muntaka said quite a lot, and Dr. Mateme reflected on the issue of staffing. But when I got this report, and I got completely confused because I could not trace from the beginning, from the budgeting to the expenditure and the accounting, the resources that was given to PAP. I would have wished, because in our parliament, and I served in the Parliamentary Commission for some time, there are clear votes. And when financial reports come, they are reflected in terms of votes. The votes reflect the various elements of our organization. For PAP, there ought to be separate votes that clearly reflect the activities and expenses of the president, the bureau, the committees, members, and the clerk. Within those, there could be budget items, whether it is travel, whether it is that becomes easy to trace. As of now, I don't even know what contribution I can make to telling ourselves that what we have reflects the budget of PAP, that reflects the aspiration of PAP, and that reflects the accountability that is absolutely crucial, so that PAP becomes an exemplary institution for our African countries, so that PAP can attract the confidence of donors to support, so that PAP can then build itself to that organization that the Malabo Protocol aspires us to be, an independent parliament. With this record of accountability, the kind of impunity reflected in the management of resources of PAP, I would like to caution this House that, as Honorable Muntaka said, we are in danger of working ourselves out of existence. And lastly,
thank you very much.
Lastly, Mr. Right Honorable President, there are two things that corrupts in this world. It is power and money. If we don't watch how we deal with power, and we don't watch how we
as well as the strategic documents of PAP. With regard to the strategic plan, on point 14 in page 40 or 42, it reflects the issues that were raised yesterday by the parliamentarians when the report was submitted to us. So it analyzes the performance indicators, and they actually call our attention to the fact that those performance indicators should be criteria, and we should work at PAP in order to ensure realistic outcomes. The report also indicates what has been done with regard to recommendations adopted in previous years. It showed that the 27 points that were mentioned in previous reports, 81% of those points have been already completed. 19% still needs to be attained. So I think that we need to recognize when there are improvements, and here we can see an 81% improvement. Last year I criticized quite significantly and ferociously the things that had not been attained, but I believe that in fact that committee is doing its best to try and improve its performance. I'd like to ask CAPA the following. What is the system that is used in terms of Forex, so that we can understand point 19? And secondly, what recommendation is CAPA doing with regards to all the physical assets of PAP that were not able to be analyzed by the accountants, as we can see on page 13? And then finally, I would like to appeal to the clerk of the parliament to be a little bit more strict with his staff in order to ensure that they 100% comply with all the principles and procedures in the parliamentary procedures. And when there is any sort of non-compliance, that you should take action immediately and that you don't wait for the results of the audit. We need to protect the good name of the Pan-African Parliament. It's important that this parliament be transparent in all its endeavors. Thank you.
Now give the floor to Honorable Zalikatu Diallo from Guinea. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, please wait.
Please, Mr. Chairman, the list of speakers has not been circulated. We should have the this list of speakers should be circulated in order for us to know whether our names are there, part of the list. Please.
Monsieur Honorable Faisal, vote.
Honorable Faisal, your name is on the list which I have in front of me, but I have not reached your name. So we still have Honorable Rorios Numea from Burundi, Honorable Mohamed Reza Kassam Gutem from Mauritius, Maria Mediatrice Isabelia from Rwanda, Tekle Baromo from Ethiopia, Faisal Tebini from Tunisia, Santos Vinita Kelian from South Africa, Jean-Patrice France Quentin from Mauritius, Samaseku Belko from Mali, Honorable Gangarina Anifa from Uganda, Honorable Mamadou Aliou Conte from Republic of Guinea, Honorable Naunda Sylvestre from Cameroon, Honorable Elimi Safia from Djibouti, and Honorable Dr. Bernadette Lahai from Sierra Leone. That is the second list that I have received after having exhausted the first list. I am now covering the second list. If we can continue, please. Do you allow us to continue? Honorable Faisal, can we continue? I did not say that the session should be adjourned. I just wanted to know the names on your list. I now call on Honorable Zalikatu Diallo from the Republic of Guinea. Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to start by asking you humbly to rectify the name of my country, Republic of Guinea. There are 4 Guineas in the world, but it is only our country which does not have a second name. So please say Republic of Guinea and don't call it Guinea-Conakry. Having said that, I'd like to come back to the issue on the table. I would like to also commend CAPA for the well-presented report. The analysis was very well done. All the deficiencies have been clearly identified, and now what we need to remember is that the implementation of past recommendations has not been done. This is the reason why we should not just engage in discourses. We have to punish and sanction. We have to review the way we manage things. When we look at paragraph 10.12, where it is shocking to see this, when the internal auditors asked for the state of expenditure should be put in a way which complies with the budget rules. The staff concerned refused to do it. The issues were brought to the attention of the authorities, but nothing has been done to compel the staff member to submit the data, and no measure was taken to punish the person concerned. So this is serious for such an institution like ours. So this brings up very basic issues, according to me. In case of shortcomings, and if, who should take responsibility? Secondly, in most of our national parliaments, it is the Speaker of the Parliament who is responsible for the budget. So, as the Honorable from Burundi said, we must revisit the institutional provision to improve the management of our Parliament so that we are more credible in the eyes of our internal and international opinions, and particularly our international partners who assist us. After all, we are highly dependent on their support. Thank you. Thank you, dear colleague. I'll now call on Honorable Gloriose Nimea from Burundi. I now call on Honorable Mohammad Reza Kazem from Mauritius.
President, let me first of all join my honorable colleagues and congratulate CAPA for this very comprehensive report, which not only identify issues, but also propose solutions. Solution to improve efficiency, solution to improve effective use of funds, solutions to reduce wastage and to do savings. But it is not enough to make recommendations. Recommendation must be implemented. And I fully agree with the recommendation of CAPA that there should be a rate of implementation in the next report. We need to have, from the PAP management, a rate of implementation. We need to have clear guidelines and time for implementation of all the very valid recommendations that are made by CAPA and made by other honorable members of these chambers. Mr. President, I've been here for 3 years. It's the third time I'm reading a CAPA report, but never before have I seen a report so critical of PAP management as this report. Things are not improving. Things are deteriorating. Things are getting worse. We have things that are shocking. You know, there's increase in interns from 151 to 247. And we're told that the change in remuneration rates for support staff was not even approved by the Bureau. How can that be? How can people be spending money without any supervision? We have been told in the report that even the internal auditor does not have access to the books and records. Books and records are not properly kept. How are we going to monitor the situation? How are we going to control PAP management? And what is worse, Mr. President, is the attitude of the PAP management which comes out from this report. For example, when they were told about the unauthorized spending in Sharm el-Sheikh, what did they say? The amounts paid were not significant. So because the amount paid was not significant, they can do whatever they want. This is the message. But then when it comes to them, when it is something that affects their interests, look what they say. I'm talking about 9.14 management. We're talking about the acting allowance. When they were told about improper acting allowance, what does the PAP management answer? However, and I quote, however, management will seek legal opinion on the legality of this memo and ensure that the issue is corrected going forward, and anything due to the staff during the period are paid retrospectively if warranted. When it comes to them,
Merci. Merci,
so,
cher
Mr.
collègue.
Speaker, I will just end by saying, by quoting
Merci,
the
cher
French.
collègue. La parole.
Thank you, dear colleague. And now call on Honorable Marie Mediatrice from Rwanda. Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity. First of all, I'd like to commend the committee, CAPA, for the quality of the report submitted. Mr. President, as I read this report, I had a concern which came to my mind on page 14, where the committee mentioned the problem of the management, which has not yet done a physical verification of the assets. And the reason given is that the staff member in charge was not trained on the SAP module. My first question, did the internal audit unit observe this deficiency, or else did the staff officer state that he needs further stain? For people who did not get the right documents, I was wondering if the clerk has asked for an explanation from the staff members who refused to submit this data to the auditors. Regarding the problems which arise every year, what are the measures put in place to evaluate the implementation of the recommendations made by the audit in order to avoid these repeated mistakes observed in the CAPA report? Thank you. I now call on Honorable Tekle Gassama Baromo from Ethiopia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to thank the CAPA for doing this detailed task. Mr. President, it's not only the scarcity of resources in Africa, the problem, it's also the proper utilization of our resources, one of the issues in our institutions. Regarding this, we cannot avoid irregularities from any activity, but it's very important to learn from our mistakes and to take measures on the irregularities and the mistakes what we have done. So I would like to ask the CAPA how far the institution is ready to learn from its failure. It must be rectified. So, and my second opinion is that CAPA is focused on this report, especially on financial and assets issues. But yesterday we were discussing about the activity report. The activity report should be based on plan. So performance audit must be enhanced in this institution. The institution should perform its plans, its goals, and its targets. CAPA should also must audit a performance audit. What we have planned and what we have achieved must be audited by the CAPA. So we can see how we are going accordingly to our plan set for the annual or for the year. In this regard, it's better to do performance audit, just like to financial and asset audit. I thank you, Mr. President.
Merci beaucoup, cher.
Thank you, dear colleague. I now call on Honorable Faisal Ebini from Tunisia. Good morning, everybody. We are discussing today the report of the Committee on Audit and Public Accounts. While underscoring the important efforts made by this committee, particularly in drafting this report, we do see a change in the position of the committee. We do not have the right to constantly violate the rules and see that mistakes are being made forever. And the recommendations that have been made, the serious recommendations that have been made, actually seem to describe the reality of the situation. Since my arrival in PAP, at every session, the same mistakes seem to be committed every year in the CAPA report. Lack of transparency, lack of clarity in the nominations, in the designation, and on everything. And this is not in the interest of the Parliament, because this will destabilize the Parliament and will mar its reputation, not only vis-a-vis the donors, but also vis-a-vis other institutions and even vis-a-vis the African Union itself. Personally, I am really surprised, Mr. President, when a few minutes ago you referred to the rules of procedure in order to place the entire responsibility on the clerk. We are all Africans, and we all know that the person who is in a position like yours and who becomes the president of this institution also becomes the vice president, the clerk, members. Actually, he occupies all the positions. This is the reason why I'm not surprised to see what's happening in this Parliament, in spite of all the respect I owe to you. You're using your position to attack one of the members of the Parliament, and this is also part of transparency. I know you would not appreciate what I'm trying to tell you, and I'm convinced that you will protest, and I was certain about your reaction, because you're not democratic enough and you're not patient enough. Microphone, please. There, that's it. You are reacting as expected, and I hope you'll be brave enough to be democratic and to respect the position that you occupy today, to be fair with everybody, and to be transparent and not to shirk your responsibilities. Africa will not be able to progress
them to bring in issues not relevant to the report that we are discussing at hand. I sincerely hope that we will exercise more discipline rather than subject the rest of us to nonsense. Mr. President, CAPA is a formally constituted committee, and it was constituted by way of a resolution of this House. Now, it would appear that there's a disrespect of this committee by the management of this Parliament. And I think that that needs to be addressed by the Bureau, because if we have now given certain powers to CAPA and they are frustrated in their effort to deliver, the blame lies fairly and squarely on the Bureau. The example cited in the report of where a staff member, an official, just flatly refused to produce any documents is a serious case, I think, for dismissal. It would appear that the management wants to defend such individuals and not refer them to disciplinary committees, saying that it will be handled internally. It cannot be that we have officials disrespecting formally constituted bodies. I would like to ask the chairperson, what are the financial implications of the MOUs that are entered into on behalf of this Parliament? I do not see it in the report, and the President has undertaken certain MOUs with some parliaments. I would like to know if this was considered. I would also like to know I don't see it in the report, a rough estimate for the cancellation of tickets. We heard yesterday that a particular MP who was designated to attend some missions accompanying the president accepted the invitation and then cancelled on account of elections in their country. I submit that a member of parliament knows 90 days before that date of the election that you are unavailable on that date. So it is incorrect, I think, and improper to accept an invitation knowing that your parliament is going to go into election mode and then to cancel at the last minute. This has two implications. One, the cost to parliament for cancelling, and secondly, you automatically eliminate another MP from taking up that position because you cancelled at the last minute. I would like to state that if there is not sufficient motivation for cancellation of your ticket, that amount be deducted from the allowance that is paid to the MP. I thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I'll now call on Honorable Jean-Baptiste Franz-Quint from Mauritius.
I would like, first of all, to congratulate the chairperson, the committee members of the CAPA, as well as all the members of the staff who together have worked very hard in order to present this such important and bulky report in time. During the previous preliminary session in May, I had the opportunity to comment on the various discrepancies and weaknesses noted by the CAPA in their last report. This time again, Mr. President, the CAPA has pointed out so many weaknesses and an obvious lack of control in the day-to-day management. From an improper and inadequate record-keeping to the non-implementation of regular reconciliation process for accuracy of stock, as well as for bank accounts and suppliers' accounts. In addition to that, there was no proper stock control for financial year 2016. Is it still the case now? We don't know. Furthermore, Mr. President, with regard to the plenary session in Sharm el-Sheikh in last October, the CAPA has pointed out many gaps pertaining to the hosting agreement between the PAP and the Egyptian Parliament, as stated by many members before me. And these gaps, such as the cash paid to Egyptian support staff, the transportation hired, I'm just mentioning a few. And on this issue, Mr. President, I surely share the views expressed by Honorable Muntaka and Honorable Utim. Mr. President, I don't want to go in details as I might take too much time, but nevertheless, I sincerely wish that from now on, the Internal Control Department, as well as the management at large, will act in a more responsible and professional manner in order to avoid such recurrences again and again in the future. Before ending, let's hope, Mr. President, that this time this report will not remain in a drawer without implementing the numerous recommendations made by the CAPA. I thank you.
Merci beaucoup, chers collègues.
Thank you, dear colleague. We now call on Honorable Sa Maseku Belko from Mali. Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to commend the CAPA for the report they presented in spite of all the difficulties. My question is the following. Mr. President, the internal auditors and CAPA do they exist to do a good job, a complete job? If yes, I don't see why they should be prevented from doing their job. They only need an authorization from you to do their job, and they don't have to go through anybody else to obtain documents. With your instructions, they should be able to access all banks used by the PAP, and they can go through the same banks to obtain the bank statements. And the clerk is compelled to give them all the registers and ledgers related to financial activities, as well as all the financial statements for all the accounts. The audit committee should be able to supervise and check all the accounts. And if they don't have access to these documents, Mr. President, I think the first person who's challenged, it's you. Mr. President, you should help them do their work, especially since the person who is the budget auditor is also the person to make sure that, how shall I say, that finances are well managed. We can't go on like this, Mr. President. They don't have to go through anybody else. They have to just do their work. In case they can't access these documents, they have the right to draft a report and submit it to all the donors. That is their work. It shouldn't be limited to that. Otherwise, we will continue working like we've been doing since 2014 to this day. Thank you, dear colleague. I now call on Honorable Girana Hanifa from Uganda.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we are discussing financial matters, and a lot has been said. Financial matters, Mr. President, are always standardized, and I'm sure at PAP it is not different. Honorable Mbarak and other colleagues have said it all. And I'm sure when my colleagues are expressing their displeasure, it's not that they are doing it in bad faith. I have looked through this document, and I have a fear like my friends. One is, I don't know why CAP did not come out strongly. I don't know why CAP did not come out strongly, CAPA, to recommend, make strong recommendations, because most of the recommendations are watered down. If we are to give a mark to this CAP report, everything is poor performance, poor accountability, poor financial management, poor everything. For heaven's sake, where are we going? If there was a need to overhaul the whole finance department, you would have said so, and we did the right thing. I am one person who doesn't like to sit here and there is a problem and I sit over that problem. Mr. President, how can the management fail its performance administration role? How can somebody say, refuse it to do this, refuse it to give this, refuse it to do that, and up to now, we cannot come with a resolution to say enough is enough? I end by saying one thing, that this August House is not going to sit here and listen recommendations after recommendations. We are going to act, and I recommend that we set up an investigative body as soon as possible, and this body will bite, and we are not going to start nursing. Whoever is culpable must face discipline and must exit as long as we do our work. I thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I give the floor to Honorable Mamadou Aliou Condé from Guinea. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I wish to extend my thanks to CAPA members for the information given to us on the management of PAP in this 73-page report. This shows that they worked really hard on this. They highlighted the irregularities and the shortcomings in PAP management. Let me give you one example. There are many examples, but let me give you one. In page 37 of the French draft, it says that when internal auditors requested the supporting documents on the reallocation of $107,000, they received the documents for $87,000, but and only 22% were properly allocated. This means that there are problems. In this 73-page report, we wanted to have, by the end, to see the parts that showed irregularities. That's very important. It's very important to comply with the rules. And we would have liked to have more information on the veracity of the accounts given here. Let me highlight another problem raised earlier on in relation to the clerk and the president. When you prepared the organizational chart of the PAP, you put at the top the president and you put all the structures under the president. But when you take the attributions of the clerk, you take him out of the you don't put them under the president, and then this makes the structure very different. We need to review this. We need to analyze the situation better and overcome these difficulties. I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, dear colleague. I give the floor to Honorable Rwanga from Cameroon. Mr. Chairman, I thank you. Mr. President, I thank you. Let me refer to the incident that happened earlier on. A member of parliament felt he was accused, and I believe that we should be calmer in this house. I recall that when you raised the issue yesterday, you gave no name at all. Perhaps I'm mistaken. The member of parliament from the Republic of South Africa asked for a name, but you did not give that name. But now someone has introduced himself as the person in question. I'm a little bit surprised here, and we should be more moderate when deal with these issues, when we attend these meetings as representatives of African peoples and African states. So we have the duty of dignity to avoid treating other people like children. So this, there was shouts, and and we should not spend a great deal of time talking about secondary issues related to the daily business of this parliament. Staff, equipment, and the like. I am a member of a national parliament. I am a member of the Bureau. And as a modest parliamentarian, others never raised questions on the management of staff. So we never raised questions.
No, Mr. President, I think somebody raised a point of order earlier. We are discussing an issue at stake. And it appears we are also deviating. I remember when the issue was brought, the member from South Africa was saying that this thing has already been adopted and we should move forward. And if we had already agreed on that, we shouldn't be going back again to discuss this issue. We should be discussing the report
or Kappa, which is the issue at stake. We appear to be enjoying this one, but we are not enjoying the other one earlier. I think we should concentrate on the discussion of Kappa report as being presented. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much. Honorable, please comment on Kappa report. Microphone, please. We can't hear the gentleman. As regards the report itself, Mr. President, this report was given to us too late, as far as I'm concerned. I wish to suggest that the deliberations of Kappa start before the holding of our session, so that the report can be sent to us before the beginning of the session that is in charge of considering this report. I received this report in this House, and I did not have the opportunity to read it. Having said that, and in spite of the shortcomings highlighted in this report, we must recognize that Kappa did an acceptable piece of work, taking into account the questions we raised at the beginning on the role of Kappa, the role of the Finance Committee, the role of internal and external auditors. It is not really obvious for Kappa to position itself within this institution, but it managed to do so thanks to this report. We need to make a can be improved in the future. As regards the problems highlighted by Kappa in its report, the shortcomings on the Sharm el-Sheikh session, I would like to ask the Bureau to tell us what happened, whether contacts were established with the government of Egypt to see what actually happened. And finally, Mr. President, we have all the time we need to consider this question of our affiliation to the African Union. This oversight by the African Union is made through auditing of the Pan-African Parliament. We're all members of national parliaments. As when the government gives money to a parliament, it does not control how the parliament spends that money. The parliament has its internal auditing rules, so the African Union has no right to monitor the budget given to us. Thank you. The African Union asked for suspending the allocations of fees to parliamentarians. We deplored that statement, and this is meant to show that decisions are made and we contest those decisions. So the relationship between the African Union and the Pan-African Parliament needs to be further clarified so that similar situations will not happen again. Thank you very much. I give Honorable Mugaya from Mauritania. You have the floor, Honorable.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Mr. President, I wish to thank Kappa for the job well done. The report is comprehensive and dealt with the details. It has enabled us to produce relevant recommendations. If these recommendations are implemented, they will lead to a transparent management. We have the obligation of transparency. We vote laws against corruption, and we must give the example. It is not acceptable that a staff member refuses to give explanations to CAPA. Not to sanction these people in such situations will make these illegal acts continue, and these are unacceptable acts. All of us must must be open for sanctions. When we create, we need to create a service for equipment instead of having one simple staff member. This is very important, and we need to control the coming in and the exit of equipment, and this is very important in relation to maintaining our equipment. I'm sorry for of fights among members of parliament. Dear colleagues, we said that we were not going to talk about that. Allow me to talk about this because it's very important. We said that we would not talk about this. Please make your comments on the report. If you finished, I thank you. I accept your discipline, but I would like to ask you, Mr. President, and since you are our president, you should accept our criticism. You are our leaders. You should accept criticism, but you should also continue leading us for the noble cause of Africa. Fights among members of parliament are of no interest to our community, nor the African people, nor our parliament. I give the floor to Honorable Regine Espera from Seychelles. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I congratulate CAPA for this excellent report. And as I do so, let me point out an issue which to me, to my point of view, should be made clear. The issue of accountability and monitoring. I attended the first plenary in May and a commission meeting in August. Mr. President, and last week I was also here since Thursday for the high-level colloque on HIV. Mr. President, we are talking about accountability, and I think as Parliament, we should be leading by example. Charity starts at home. Yesterday, one member brought up the issue of discipline when we go for allowance and dues collection. Mr. President, I think that this happened because the way members are informed about these payments. Usually, the announcement is not made from official sources. On 2 occasions, it was my colleague from Mauritius who informed me to go for my allowance. You see, Mr. President, if we are due to have an allowance, why is it not announced in chamber and from the clerk? The clerk could tell us when he is making announcement that all committees should report to their respective clerk to collect their allowance. Let me go back to last Friday afternoon after the session. There was this pushing because some members knew that UNH would be paying out allowance, Mr. President, and some members did not know. Mr. President, we should change the way of doing things. We are not beggars, but members of Parliament, and we should be respected for who we are. I urge you, Mr. President, to look into the issue so that as everybody would have the correct information from official sources instead of being whispered in the corridor. Mr. President, I think that all allowance received should be signed so as PAP can keep a record and be accountable for money dished out to members. But it is from, be it is from donors or from PAP. I say this because in August, after a session, we were given envelope under the table with some cash in it. There was no signing of any document to keep record, Mr. President. We are here talking about accountability, and correct records should be kept for accountability and auditing. Each cent spent from PAP account should be justified. I'm raising this issue, Mr. President, because I think there is something wrong somewhere and should be corrected.
Merci beaucoup, cher collègue.
Thank you, dear colleague. Honorable Marie-Claire Monti from Mauritius, you have the floor, ma'am.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the floor. First of all, bravo, and I thank the CAPA team for working on this report in a very detailed manner and with enlightened minds. Mr. President, without being a series of figures, this report raises a number of problems and makes recommendations. So this is not a novel, and this is not simply a set of figures. This report is good for our information. Mr. President, as a member of PAP, we want PAP to be more visible, more performing, and cleaner, a cleaner PAP. Without a financial administration that is heavy. So the report is a wake-up call to all of us. It reminds the financial administration of the shortcomings, and this should be an opportunity for a new start for the financial administration of our PAP. This is a strong signal. It sheds light on the financial administration of our Parliament. Let me refer to some details in page 9, paragraph 5, where the report says, uses the term dark to refer to bad debt, and this is not an honor to our administration. The word irregularities is very recurrent in this report. The details also on non-reimbursed tickets is another example. I hope that there will be no refusal on the part of staff members, refusal to submit details of expenditure. I hope that the finance section knows that the red lights are head-on and ladies and gentlemen, the managers, the game is not over, and we need to have an enlightened financial management. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, dear colleague. I give the floor to Honorable Veronica Dakugu from Uganda.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me way. I want to thank the committee for the work well done. However, my comment on the committee report, that the report is more narrative than analytical. I would have expected the financial committee to present a report which is in financial term more than being so narrative. The second issue that I'm having, the committee's report talks about the bad financial management which the institution is having. My comment in regard to that, I want to ask whether the PAP institution is really having financial systems, because the report talks about the internal, it talks about having internal auditors, but the external auditors fail to get documents which disenable them to carry out their work well. They also talk about the system not having asset registers, which I think the asset register is very important, because this is the register which talks about the assets which the institution is having. By the institution not having the asset register, it means that we don't know the assets which the institution has. We don't even know the balances in stock. The report does not even talk about the stock taking. This is the physical verification of the assets. And by the report not talking about the stock taking, which means that the institution does not even know the current assets and the physical assets which the institution has. The report also talks about the institution not coding its assets and the equipment, which I think is very dangerous, because in most institutions, when assets are received, especially equipment, they are recorded, they are given code names, but for this case, the institution does not code, and it renders the institution not to know their assets, and in case the equipment happens to be stolen, they cannot be traceable. I rest my case. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mohamed Foudili from Djibouti. You have the floor. Mr. President, allow me to congratulate CAPA members who for weeks worked on this report, a precise, clear report. This is not the first time CAPA produces such a report. Irregularities are constant. Negligence is traditional, and this is clearly identified in the report. The committee did its job. Now it's up to us to do the following up. There are recommendations for the futures and sanctions to be made. I wonder whether the Bureau can consider this report and present to us before the end of this session the measures that will be made by the Bureau and the President of PAP. Thank you. Thank you. Honorable Mustafa El Gandhi from Egypt. You have the floor, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I simply wanted to thank you once again for coming to Sharm el-Sheikh. I understand that Sharm el-Sheikh is a problem in the report. I was there in Sharm el-Sheikh from the beginning till the end of the meeting. From the beginning, I was there to sign papers between the Egyptian Parliament and the Pan-African Parliament. I was there before the session and after the session. Egypt. I know that we did everything we had to do. Even the President of the Republic, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, gave orders to do more. You know that we organized festivities that cost more than $250,000. So that's Egypt, and Egypt invited that meeting. I look at our history. Our history shows that we invite people, we are hospitable. We can, I personally wish to say that if there is something that Egypt didn't do and it was signed, I personally commit myself, and my country will certainly back me up. I personally commit myself to pay the Pan-African Parliament what Egypt did not give. But you need to consider the whole situation and see whether Egypt did not honor its commitments. Mr. President, yesterday you signed a letter to support the candidature of an African lady in the UNESCO contest that started a few days ago. That was distributed yesterday in Paris, and we distributed this among all African members. The Pan-African Parliament produced this letter of support. I would like to thank Algeria and Mauritius, Ghana. 3 out of 14 countries gave their Egypt to Egypt. And I thank you very much for this. I thank the others. You have 3 choices. Africa is represented by Egypt, France, and Qatar. Qatar received the highest votes for UNESCO, just the way it had the World Cup with money. Mr. President, Qatar is hosting Islamist terrorists, and I would like to ask your countries, Kenya and others. Egypt has a place. It is 5,000 years of history. Please support Africa, support your continent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I wanted to give the floor to Honorable Eleni Safia from Djibouti.
Merci, Monsieur le
I thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the floor, and I would like to add my voice to those of my colleagues who have preceded me to thank CAPA for the very good job done and for the efforts that they have made in order to achieve this work. Having said that, Mr. President, everything that has been said by colleagues has drawn my attention, and I think that I have the obligation, in order to make some proposals. Could you please... what I'm saying is part of the debate, Mr. President. So in order to make proposals, in order to improve the content of this document. But before doing this, Mr. President, I would like to ask two questions. That is the following. The staff. The staff within the Directorate of Finance, does it really fill the requirement of their positions? Did they go through any evaluation on their performance? If this has been done, what are the decisions that have been taken? So these are the proposals which I would like to improve, to improve the situation as much as possible. We have discussed this at the Bureau, but I think that repetition is good. And also, it is something also that is very important. I think that it is very urgent to elaborate a manual for accounting measures in order to take the necessary measures. Second, to set up a job description so that each agent of the Directorate of Finance could be evaluated. And third, proceed to sanctions on agents who have not fulfilled their duties. And I think that the report of the audit should be more elaborated and that necessary decision be taken. And if the General Secretariat needs the help of the Bureau will be available to help them in order to attain the objectives that we have set ourselves, so that we can determine our fate and not let our institution sink down. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, honorable members, first of all, let me thank the CAPA committee for their report. I will immediately go and point out and congratulate them on the novelty that they are introducing in their CAPA report. For the first time, we have in this report previous recommendations and their level of implementation, which is attached to the annex. I think this is very good because we need to keep track of the level of implementation of CAPA reports. The higher the level of implementation, all things being equal, we expect that PAP is working in an efficient manner, PAP is working in a timely manner, and that means we are assured of having value for money. So I congratulate you, and we hope that this new novel way of reporting is good. But I'm also sad in the sense that when I compare this report to the report we had in May 2017, there are still reoccurring issues. There are still reoccurring issues. We are still talking of eligible, ineligible expenses. We are still talking of delayed collection of VAT. We are still talking of review of the financial statement of PAP, especially bad debts. We are still talking of the need for organizational audit or performance audit. And we are still talking of delays by management in responding to audit queries. This is of concern. If these are still reoccurring, then it means one or two things. Either those for whom these issues that are being reported are not listening and taking corrective measures, or they are taking the institution for granted, or maybe they don't even know or have access to the CAPA report, so that at the end of the day, they will see what pertains to their own department and take requisite necessary speedy actions to address these issues. So, what are we suggesting? We are suggesting that the necessary heads of department in this PAP, after this report, they should sit with their department ahead, with their department, and go through line by line to look at those issues that pertain to their department and see what measures they can take. Otherwise, if it is reoccurring, then something is wrong somewhere. Maybe we should start now at putting strict penalty measures for those departments whose issues continue to be reoccurring. That means they are not taking either the report seriously, or they are not taking the PAP work seriously, or they are not taking their work seriously. So this is really a concern that I want to make. And with regards to the general recommendations, Mr. President, honorable members, we don't want to go to 2018 with these residual issues. We want to start 2018 on a clean slate. So I am recommending the following, that between now and the end of December, let us give adequate resources to PAP, to CAPA, to come and stay here and work in line with every department to address all the issues before the end of this year, if it is possible. The money, we have many budget lines. Even as I speak, we have budget lines that have zero implementation. Budget lines that are not utilized year in, year out. And yet there's money in there. So let us see whether the account people can apply to AUC to via some of those budget lines that are not utilized at all, so that enough money is given to CAPA, so that for the next 3 months before the end of this year, they sit with all the necessary departments and iron out all of these issues. Because it is not efficient. We come here every year, CAPA makes the same report. Let us start this coming year, 2018, really on a clean slate of paper, by ensuring that if it means CAPA stay here for three months before December, let it be, so that we finish with this. Because our books are messy. Internal auditors' reports are not taken seriously. When the external auditors come, they also see the same thing over and over. So that speaks volume of whether, in fact, we are really walking the talk. So this is what I'm recommending. Of course, there are other issues, but if CAP stays here and do the work, by the end of this year, next year when we come, and by the next CAPA report in May next year, some of these issues would have been dealt with. And then, outsiders are going to take us seriously. I thank you, CAPA, for the hard work, but we also make sure that the resources are given to CAPA. The resources are given to the Office of the Internal Auditor. It is so important. If they are doing their work and if they are taking them very seriously, then CAPA's work will be easy. So let us capacitate the internal audit, and let's make sure that the department speedily responds to the internal auditor's report. Those that don't do it, let us take punitive measures against them, because otherwise they are giving the CAPA and the PAP finances a bad name. I thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, we have come to the conclusion of this general debate. I would like, on behalf of the Bureau, to take the floor to say and to answer a certain number of questions and say clearly things as they should be said. I must first say that, and I continue to say that, we are a political institution, a diplomatic institution. The least is that when your colleagues have done work, that you do not reject that and say this is worth nothing, because it is frustrating. And they would think that they're probably not competent. This work was done, and members of CAPA left their homes to come and do this work. And this is why they have noted a certain number of negative points. And when I say that we are a political institution, so let's avoid doing a politician policy. And politician, and most of the people come from your own countries. And if we come to wrong situations, then you must accept it. And when you come here, then you speak a different language, but then an agent from your own country would come and see you, and you're already there to back him or her. So the first thing is that we do not have our regulations, our own financial regulations, and we do not have also an administrative regulations. This is why all what you're saying here, we have requested an investigation, but the results of the investigation, whatever they are, is that PAP will not take any decisions, because if we want to fire anybody from here, we must draw a report and send it to the Commission of the African Union. These are the kind of staff regulation that we have. What Mr. Conte has said, we need a reform. We cannot have a bureau which does not have any administrative prerogative and which has no financial prerogative. And when I'm told that I need to audit any account, this account has been opened in the name of whom? And I can say that the president cannot check any account, and all the accounts bear the name of the clerk. So, and even mail is not copied to me. I do not know, I cannot really tell you how much fund we have in our possession. So we have not been considered as part of the staff of the African Union. So this is why the General Secretariat, which is the organ of the African Union, is managing the funds of the African Union. Why? It is quite clear that it is the president who is the accounting officer. If how can people say that you've been elected, and when there is a separation, I cannot give an explanation to anybody here without really being instructed by Addis Ababa. So this is why I'm saying that the administration, Dr. Bernadette has said, we have in the Bureau instructed an institutional audit. And because the great problem here is that we must say with what kind of standard people have been recruited. And people are here, they're around, they're already here, they're governed by the rules or by the staff regulations of the African Union. I have asked that we draw up regulations for the Pan-African Parliament. And then so we are still talking about these problems. Now, please help us. We cannot do everything in the right way. We are faced with all these difficulties. When I learned, El Gundi and I, we were in Sharm el-Sheikh when this matter of expenses has started. He has had the same language. And I requested him to give me the explanations. I was in Sharm el-Sheikh, and if there have been expenses, if the president or the bureau could be informed we would have been told that we're being faced with difficulties. But I just learned later on that PAP has been incurred expenses which were borne by Egypt. So, Mr. El Gendi, if there is any level of expenses, I'm ready to refund. So the financial management is individual. You cannot say that this is collective. It is the accountant. The accountant should prove, come up with proofs. And he has managed the expenses, and if there is any mistake, then he should be blamed. But we cannot sanction because we'll be told this is not what the staff regulations stipulate. So in the Bureau, we said that we need an investigation, and since the investigation is going on, we would like to have the results, and we must check also with what kind of degrees the staff has been recruited. And I have asked the former clerk to check the degrees of the staff. But nothing has been done. This was blocked, the evaluation of the staff. It is the head of the staff who is in charge of that, and everything is clear in the staff regulation of the African Union. I think that this the job which Kappa has done is excellent, and it has unveiled all the difficulties that the institution is faced with. And even if we cannot act as an institution, because when you're told that when there is a
Honorable Mohammed Mubarak Muntaka.
Yeah. Okay. All right, can you stand by? Can you stand by? And shoot.
Yes, good afternoon and welcome. We're coming to you live from the Pan-African Parliament, where proceedings are continuing from this morning. We saw discussions around Chad, which has been suspended to travel to the United States, pleading here at the Pan-African Parliament for the Pan-African Parliament to talk about pleading with the United States to uplift that ban. Currently, what is going on is that the Audit Committee of the Pan-African Parliament is discussing its report after reviewing the performance of the Pan-African Parliament's management here in Midrand. But with us now is the Honorable Mohammed Mubarak Muntaka from Ghana, because you will remember that Zimbabwe has just introduced a cyber crime ministry or cyber security ministry, and we are hearing from the members of parliament from the various African countries what they are doing in their respective countries and how cyber security and cyber crime is affecting them. Honorable, welcome and thank you for joining us. Now tell us about Ghana. What are you doing? How is cyber crime or cyber security being dealt with in Ghana?
Well, obviously, thank you very much and good afternoon for having me. Well, in Ghana, it's like everywhere in the world where cyber crime is now becoming a major issue. I mean, it's becoming a major security concern because people are using cyber to commit all manner of crimes. Apart from the financial crimes, they're also using it for terrorist activity and what have you. In Ghana, we have a Minister for National Security, we have the Interior Minister, and then we have the Defense Ministry. So we have the National Security Council that is set up to deal with all this. So they see, in Ghana, we see cyber as a crime, and therefore it is part of the security measures to deal with it. So what we have, you have a desk at the police headquarters that deals with cyber issues. The same with the military and then the national security. So last year we tried to introduce, the government tried to introduce a bill that Parliament, we were a bit skeptical because it was to be able to, eavesdrop into our phone calls and what have you, even though the bill has shown how they are going to do it. They will always have to run to maybe a court for a court order, but within 24 hours they can do a number of things and then rush to rectify or get a court to approve what they are doing. we are a bit skeptical because we believe that the liberty of individuals is also very, very important. But for now, what they are doing is just using the gadgets. I mean, Accra is becoming modern. Most of the big cities mounting a lot of cameras all around, checking. I mean, they are able to play oversight on what the activities that people are carrying out. We have an anti-money laundering. We have a lot of regulations that are helping them to be able to deal with that, but they are dealing with it as a national security issue. So you have the Minister of Defense, you have the Minister of Interior, and you have the National Security Minister all together on the same desk trying to deal with it. So we don't have a single minister dealing with it, but we have the whole security apparatus dealing with it, and all of them really are up and out, because a number of times you hear in Ghana, this person has been arrested. Out of that, even what do you call it, Simbox crime, where people try to make calls into Ghana, international call outside the necessary channels, and all that. They are arresting them, and you keep hearing them in the news, and prosecutions are going on. But like I said, cybercrime all around the world is a major concern, and I think that every African country needs to be up and doing, because I mean, in the case of Africa, our borders are artificial. So if Ghana is doing well, and say probably Togo and Burkina Faso and Cote d'Ivoire, who are our neighbors, are not doing much, then it will erode the effort that we are putting. So I think that every African country, not only Zimbabwe, who is having a minister, and I also believe that it shouldn't be left to one ministry to deal with. It should be something that will cut across, where so many others are also part of it, so that together we'll be able to fight it and make sure that it doesn't destroy Africa.
Now, how about collaboration on the African continent? As you are here, members of parliament from various countries, do you see working together on cybercrime and cybersecurity as a thing that can help the continent? Sure, because
the security ministers across Africa, or the national security coordinators across Africa, they have a lot of platforms. I'm aware last month they met in Sudan for a conference. We need to encourage that, because then we will be sharing information, we will be having exchanges, we'll be sharing ideas. Those who are lagging behind will be pulled up. Those who are advancing will get the encouragement to be able to lead, so that it is a shared responsibility. Because, I mean, it takes just 6 hours to be in Ghana from South Africa. So if you leave Johannesburg and in 6 hours you are in Accra, you cannot say what is happening in South Africa doesn't concern Accra. What is happening in Johannesburg equally affects Accra, because within 24 hours, you can cross the length and breadth of Africa. So I think that the collaboration should be more effective. And I've been encouraging Pan-African Parliament to have a model law where all of us in Africa will use as a model to encourage those who do not have laws that will help strengthen their individual country's cyber environment to be able to come on board, so that we can all be sure that when South Africa is safe, it is not only safe and Zimbabwe not safe and Lesotho not safe, maybe Uganda not safe, then all the gains that South Africa will be making will be eroded. So I think that this collaboration should be encouraged, and Pan-Africa has a role to play by trying to get a model law that the rest of Africa, those who don't have, can be able to copy. Those that have, but it's not well enhanced, can look up to it and be able to enhance it, so that we'll have a common law, we'll have a common purpose, we have a common target, so that we do not only fight financial crime, but we'll also fight terrorism using cyber. So I think that it's a very useful thing that we do as a people and as a continent. Let's try and see ourselves as one entity, rather than everybody keeping to his kiosk or corner and just doing his best whilst his neighbor is doing so poorly in cyber, because it's a national security or it's a continental security threat to all of us.
Thank you very much. That is Honorable Muhammad Mubarak Muntaka from Ghana, saying that Africa needs to work together. Perhaps this parliament, the Pan-African Parliament, needs to come up with a model law to ensure that cybercrime and cybersecurity is dealt with across the continent. Now, Lesotho, the mountain kingdom, one of the smallest countries in Southern Africa, is one of the countries that is facing challenges in cybercrime and cybersecurity. And members of parliament from Lesotho, from various political parties, are here at the Pan-African Parliament also to discuss various issues, including security, including the challenges facing women and youth, as this particular sitting is supposed to do. And here with us this afternoon also is the Member of Parliament from Lesotho, and that is Honorable Thabo Sofonia, and he will tell us what is your experience in terms of the challenges that are facing particularly Lesotho with cybercrime and cybersecurity.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think the cybercrime is a serious problem in Lesotho. As you can see from now, we are facing a serious problem where I think the best way that we can try to control that one is to find a way of trying to register our SIM cards and telephones, as that is not the case in Lesotho. So, but it's affecting the whole world. But now, as a small country, we haven't done much, I guess, because I'm a new member of the parliament, and even here I'm just sworn in on Monday. But that is a serious problem where I think most countries have to sit together. We have to find a way of trying to rectify this. It's a serious concern to our security, because as of now, you can see now the security is busy working on this. But up to now, as we are talking, there is no a major, tangible thing that we can say we have done this to control this. It's all over our country. Even it's affecting our political. You see, most of the people now are affected by this. I think not being straight to you, you are one of the victims, I guess, Mayor. You are from Lesotho. I know you have been chased by this fiber crime now. This is a serious problem, I guess.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, you being here at the Pan-African Parliament,
yes,
do you see collaboration, not just within Africa, but perhaps with other countries of the world, helping Lesotho to deal with this issue?
Even though it hasn't come to my mind clear, but I think it's an important issue. As a member of parliament, I think now I'm responsible to raise this and also work together as a member of parliament, Pan-African Parliament. We have to consult other countries and see how we can improve on this and maybe come up with a solution, a concrete solution that we can take it to our country and maybe raise it in our parliament now, since I am new. But I think this is one of the major concerns that I have to, I myself have to take responsibility to make sure that is working now. Yes.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
And that is the Member of Parliament from Lesotho, Honorable Thabo Sofonia. From the ruling Obasotho Convention, it is in a coalition with 3 other parties, but saying that cybercrime, cybersecurity is a big issue for Lesotho, and seeing as Zimbabwe has just introduced a ministry of cybersecurity, it looks like maybe other countries on the continent or even in the region will follow. But we will go back to the proceedings here at the Pan-African Parliament, and you will hear as the members of parliament discuss, as I said, the report of the audit committee of this Pan-African Parliament.
Mr. President, the debate has been very live and very long and very detailed. I will avoid to repeat what has been said. The issue of sanctions on staff, several, what do we do with those that do not correct their mistakes? You have said it, Mr. President, I won't go into detail. It is true that in this parliament there is a culture of people thinking that they came to work but they cannot be touched by anybody even if they don't perform. No staff or member of staff has ever appeared before a disciplinary committee for not having delivered something, which shows that the culture is very bad. So then we hear also that there's politics sometimes, but I think the Bureau should not be scared of the politics. The politics meaning if the person who is incompetent is from my country and measures are being taken against that person, they approach their MP, their delegation from their country, and they say, I'm being victimized. And then the MPs then also start fighting, whether it's in the chamber or to see the president in the end being a political institution, no action is taken. That's for MPs now to decide whether they want to be an institution of good performance, good governance, or just a resting place for people from various parts of the country to get their money, and then without any results being achieved. The issue of Sharm el-Sheikh, and I'm just going through the questions. Sharm el-Sheikh, Honorable Jacqueline from Rwanda, Mwanganyira, you said this issue, there are so many anomalies, and we need to get more information on this issue. I think the information we can give you, which we mentioned, which is now very clear, is that the Egyptian government undertook to take care of certain things, expenses relating to protocol staff, relating to transport and other logistics. And we knew we were going to save a lot of money out of that. But we then find that PAP had to pay for support staff even from Egypt. We had the agreement that said Egypt would pay, but so why? How come we paid? And here we are. The protocol assistant was paid 3,957, and the media assistant 1,370. But then the protocol says these things will be paid for by the Egyptian government. And Honorable Gandhi is saying they are not aware that the PAP will ever paid anybody. You see, now there's a problem. So I think the issue of investigation team, Mr. President, is an imperative. Let's do it. Because people could be pocketing these monies, but then saying we have. Then the transportation. The Egypt government said, I just said, we said one information, the transportation. It's in the agreement. It's written and agreed that they'll provide real, and they use the word real transport, which means seriously provide on time adequate. But we paid 7,200 in transport. And there's a further anomaly, which is that the procurement procedure for this was not even followed. It was done by basically an individual, the acting clerk then, who simply said, I hired and I paid, with whom it is not clear. So that's about Sharm el-Sheikh. So let's constitute that team and see if we can establish the truth. The issue of the internal audit being respected, I think this goes without saying. We agree that we need to strengthen the independence and the capacity of the internal audit. If the internal audit was very strong, most of these things would be avoided. Honorable Kante received his report this morning, and Honorable Kante is my senior in PAP. He's been here for several years. So I should be careful when I address what he said. Honorable Kante, I think you were not in the chamber yesterday towards lunch. The report was distributed in this chamber. That you didn't see it, it only means you were not in the chamber. That's the only reason that we can give for that. Then you asked us whether CAPA rely on internal audit, external audit. I think in the report we have mentioned in great detail, Honorable Kante, we have mentioned in the report, and in English, you can go to page, I'm sorry, because I didn't show you where it is. on page 5, where it is paragraph 2.0, which says reports considered by the committee. We have a list of 8 reports that we considered. And you have the Board of External Auditors report, which thank you to Honorable Mutaka who corrected that report is not a 2017 report, it's a 2016 report. But we did consider a lot of reports, 8 of them. And these are voluminous reports, both external and internal reports. Then you were saying you are not sure what is happening to GIZ, monies, what are we saying in that table? In simple, we are saying, when you go to the records of PAP accounts, they say in the records, they spent 68,167 for monies from GIZ. So they say 68,000. But the money they got is 62. So where did they get the other 5,000? So this is about records that are not properly kept. Then again, in PANAF, you mentioned PANAF. In PANAF, they got 98,000, but they spent 91, and the money got finished. So where is the 6,000? The same with ACBF. Again, you find that the revenue is higher than the expenditure. It's about record keeping. If you go elsewhere, you find that below again, they say they expect more money from GIZ to the tune of 173,000. That's what they expect to get. But GIZ said, no, we've paid you all the money. We don't have anything owing to you. That is what Honorable Kante is appearing in those tables. It's basically about poor record keeping. And that, of course, is disastrous. And lack of reconciliations. The same with AWEPA and others that we list there. Is the difference between the money that they have received and what they claim to have spent. Stock, a lot of people have spoken about stock balances. You see, the problem, PAP is not a proper asset register for so many years. So they are not able to account for stock. And someone, then you are asking that stock is physical. Yes, it's physical when you count, but when you put in your financial statements, you attach monetary value. So I see there's a confusion that stock is because it's assets, you have to count, there are so many units, yes, 550 or whatever they are, but in the financial statements, you indicate you have to attach a monetary value. That's why you have monetary values there. The Equatorial Guinea simply wanted that the members should contribute to the AU. And the issue of no records is coming again. I'm proceeding. Honorable Muntaka, you raised very important issues for us to take seriously, including that we claim as a parliament to oversight others. So what moral standing do we have to oversee others when we cannot ourselves keep our own house in order? Then CAPA should publish a mid-year report. That's what we're actually doing, because we submit the report in May and in October. Okay, these are mid-year reports. But we should admit that we could do much better if we had more time and more resources. Being in CAPA, Mr. President is aware of this, it's frustrating. We almost failed to submit these reports because we can't even meet to look at these documents. And there will be no money. And of course, administration and finance will tell you there's no money. Money is spent, but nothing left for accountability. Policy on support staff. I think this is a serious one. Members, go and read again those tables about the issue of support staff and interpreters and the translators. If you look at the amount of money that is going to this area, which is in English we say crowding out the work of permanent committees. The money for permanent committees is going to translation, interpretation, and support staff during sessions. And as we say, we showed in the tables, the number of support staff has increased. It did increase by 65%, and the local staff 48%. But yet the parliament size has remained the same. You see, yeah, that's an inconsistency. It's like parliament is also growing, so we need more money to more staff to support us. We need more ushers. Why do we need more ushers when the numbers have remained the same? The number of days the same. Yeah, I think this has to be taken seriously. If you analyze, we actually almost blew all the budget for the plenary session. By May, we've done almost 80% of the budget by May had gone. And if you look at where it went, it's because of this business of support staff. Interpretation and translation is another area where we need to sit down with the Bureau to say, how can we cut costs on that one? Although in the budget, again, you find that we did observe that the allocation for this area remained constant for about 3 years. If you look at the tables, the allocation remained at 800,000. Is constant, yet we are crying that we don't have enough money. I think we need to increase the budget for the committees because it's not enough. Then when you move on to other issues, it was mandate of CAPA, non-implementation of recommendations. Can I make this point very clear that our role as CAPA is to flag, is to show you what is happening. That's our role. Once we do this, we then stand guided. In fact, we are presenting this to the Bureau, not even to management. We are saying to the Bureau in plenary, these are the issues. Then the Bureau in the plenary should then make their own resolutions based on our recommendations. Others are suggesting as if we should do and finish. No, we need to bring these things, make you aware first, and then you say what should be done. And the issue, Mr. President, of procedures manual, finance, human resources, procurement, that are adapted or aligned to PAP is very urgent. That's very urgent because as an institution, we are not exactly the same as the AU. All the rules that we have were made for the AU in Addis. There was no parliament. There were no MPs. There was no clerk of parliament in those structures. So, Mr. President, if we could do that ourselves, and then instead of crying and say, AU can include us, let's have these ourselves and then take them to the AU and say, this is what is ideal for us. Some of these issues of class of travel, economy could actually be resolved by ourselves having these rules in place. And my suggestion on that one is that to have that, we need to constitute a team. There is a tendency to say, let's hire consultants to do the organizational manual and the structures. My own experience as I stand here, most of the consultants that you hire, they have no clue about parliament business itself. And they just cut and paste from some other project they did in some other country, and they want to adapt it to PAP. And even the training sometimes that we undergo, the people that we see training us, I would rather train them myself. It's true. And the administration, be very careful. The people that you bring to train us, there's less value out of all that. The person has never been a member of parliament, but he's telling me about what I should be doing as an MP. Where did you get to know this? You were never an MP yourself. So to be able to have a manual for parliament, Mr. President, I would suggest we constitute a team of parliamentarians. In fact, what we have not respected, even the admin, among these parliamentarians, we have all the expertise, cheap for that matter. Because the consultants will charge you 500,000. The MPs, you just give them per diem. To me, that's much cheaper. But they'll come up with a better and acceptable result. So I'm saying the manual should be done. We may hire maybe someone from outside, one person, but let the MPs themselves that have expertise in these areas, and there are several in this room that have worked elsewhere, that would be much better. Right, certain things have been already said, so I'm skipping them, it's a repetition. Professor Latigo, you said we should recognize partners and donors so that we trace the resources where they came from and the votes. I'm happy the chair of finance has just joined us now from other commitments. This is not an audit responsibility. This is the finance committee. They are the ones who in their report should tell us sources of revenue, where do we get our money, and the expenditure is finance committee. So in this report, you cannot expect votes and to say these are the vote, the money, the activities, the president, as you said, spend so much, the bureau and the clerk. No, that is the finance committee report. Ours is to say, how were those monies deployed? And were they deployed in terms of the regulations? Did we follow the procedures? That is our role. Mr. President, I did mention just now that consultants we hire, but the value is very little. The external auditors did mention, and we agree with them, that our strategic plan, when you look at the objectives, they are not smart enough. Again, there's a consultancy which gave us this document. And already we are being told that no, something better would have been done. It's because they don't know the parliamentary language and the parliamentary business. So they will be guessing. And some consultants now, what they are doing, they actually ask MPs in the evening after we come and help me to produce a report, and then when it's done, they get the money, they go, the MPs, they've just worked for nothing. on past recommendations not done, surely I listened to the chair of the Western Caucus debating with the president on who is responsible. I think the Bureau have a role in the implementation of these recommendations. Because you are the ones that supervise management. That one even in the rules is not contested. You supervise management. The clerk may be the accounting officer in terms of money signing. The issue of accounting actually relates to signing, the issue relating to monies. But in terms of managing the whole institution, the Bureau is responsible. And they should question the clerk and follow up on anything. There's no limit. You are the bosses. He should or they should periodically report to you. And I don't know whether you are still doing the rotation where a member always from the Bureau is around here. If it's still happening, that reinforces the point that you are there to oversee management. And I think if you have been a bit lenient on them, now look, they are painting a bad picture on the PAP. So you need to try and be a bit tough on them. Mauritius, you mentioned the point of implementation and the performance appraisal. If you go to the report on page 8, paragraph 6, page 8, it says AU Executive Council decisions. I think this decision is very instructive because the AU this year in July made a decision, and I want to read what they said. That decision says to consider the outcome of audits as part of the performance appraisal system of the AU. To consider the outcome of audits, and what I mean by outcome of this is that implementation rate of audit recommendations. That should be made part of the appraisal. And then they say to institute financial sanctions for non-performance of departments. In this regard, the departments or organs be given budget allocations based on the rate of their previous budget execution and the implementation rate of audit recommendations. For the EU say, now for you to give us the next budget, we have to look at the implementation rate of audit recommendations. So we should have a robust performance monitoring framework that takes into account how the various departments of staff have implemented audit recommendations. I'm just looking at what could have been left out, but the most questions are simply some mistakes, lack of transparency. Okay, no, this one I want. It's referred to respecting CAPA. Right, MOUs. A memorandum of understanding that the Bureau signed. These ones, we don't know about them. I think when they sign, they sign. And maybe sometimes they bring them here, we know. I don't know if all of them come. I don't know whether there's follow-up on what has come out of those agreements, implementation of those. I don't know. I think this is partly finance, but sometimes money that will be giving you these monies. So that should be reflected in the finance report in terms of monies or revenue which we received. The issue of the rough estimation of tickets that are cancelled. This is a big issue at PAP, and indeed one which is producing even the committees a lot of money. We always insist that give us the amounts of money that the travel agency have to refund PAP. This is just a nightmare. The monies will run in several hundreds, thousands of dollars. That is true. In a particular year, at least sometimes in a year up to 200, 300,000 US dollars, just in tickets that have been cancelled. This is an area, again, Mr. President, that needs to be strengthened with a lot of transparency. As you know, travel agents, by their very nature, they are capitalists, they are business. We are losing a lot of money in this area, but we don't have a system that is tracking this area. The other issues are just a repetition of what others said. Stocks, no records. Internal audit should act on these weaknesses. Now, as to how we should act, I would again recommend that if you want to follow up on these recommendations, we need a particular resources that people can set aside to be able to follow that. Otherwise, by this way of just coming for 2 days and read reports and make a report, we cannot address all these issues. And then what else could I have left out? Strong, oh yes. CAPA should make strong recommendations. We said we don't want to go without your permission. What we do is simply to show you what is there and how professional it can be addressed. And they are strong, I believe. If we make them stronger, they will bite before you allow us to bite. So I think what we can now do is to say give instructions based on the recommendations. The report given too late, we wanted the report electronically. I want to address this one. The CAPA report, we've always considered it as a very sensitive report. If you look at what is contained in this report, we have to be very careful that it doesn't get to everybody everywhere. We may damage the image of PAP. even judging from the debates. So if we send it on your emails, it's a bit risky in terms of confidentiality. MPs are politicians. They will ask their secretaries to download this document and put it on there, and in the end, some other people may pick it. So our duty is just to make sure that the report is ready in time, and we give you at least 2-3 days to read. But sending it electronically will be exposing ourselves. The issue of allowances is for the Finance Committee. Suspension of allowances for the Finance Committee, that one. And then the issue of bad debts, yes, arises mainly because of poor record keeping. Because they don't know whether this monies will come on or will not come, because the records are not proper. I won't go into too much detail on that one. Then the issue of the report being narrative, not being analytical. I found that comment very interesting. You see, what we are doing is to show you what is coming out of the audit without us adding qualitatively too much. Otherwise, we distort the picture. But if you look at the reports, Honorable Veronica, if you look at page 21, 22, 24, 25, 29, just start from page 21. There is somewhere where we say risk, implication or risk. That is now the analytical part. Then we state a case, then we say implication or risk. Then we say, if this persists like this, there is a risk that some people could be getting away with money unknown, or some people, the PAP will be prejudiced. So always after every, just go through the report. Go to page 21 as I speak, just now open. 22, 20, almost every page, we are saying implication or risk. Now that's the analytical part, where we are saying, if things remain like this, the risk in financial terms is that we may lose money because of this. So I'm saying and defending that the report is both narrative and analytical, actually. Thank you, Honorable El Gandhi. He's gone out. You have given us good information. Staff in finance, are they evaluated? Honorable Sophia, I'm not sure. Would rather hear from management. Procedure sanctions, again, is up to management to follow up on this. The good recommendations that we need to implement them, I think that we need to do. We need to do, let's constitute, find money, and then the recurring issues. Look, this one, in finance, in the audit, when the auditor comes today, finds a problem, they will write it. If they come back next year and it's still there, they'll still write it. And they will continue to write it for the next 100 years. They will not ignore an anomaly just because they wrote it last time. So when you see the CAPA report repeating certain things, it means those things are not being addressed. That's the issue. Don't say, no, this report looks like the other one. No, it only means the organization has remained as bad as it was previously. Nothing has changed, maybe for worse. So continue citing bad dates until they are cleared. Now, Honorable Jatta, you said you wanted us to explain on page 8 these issues. Number 2, non-disclosure of contributions of the South African government to PAP. It's obvious. In accounting, when you account for money, you have to account for every cent you have received from whichever source. So whatever South Africa is giving us needs to go into the books. Because in South Africa, in their books, they have written money has gone to PAP. There should be a corresponding entry this side to say we received the monies. Then the issue of non-recognition of members of parliament in the African Union regulations and rules. I think this one has given us headaches. We are not known, and if we come up with our procedures, we can maybe negotiate with the AU that problem could end. The issue of tickets I've explained. The issue of DSA to MPs when they are on advocacy missions within their own country. Again, this is an issue that needs to go into the rules. How do you pay a local MP? President goes to Zimbabwe and says, please, MPs of PAP, come join me on my mission. There are expenses there. Am I entitled to anything? Am I being PAP or I'm local MP for that time? I think we need to make that clear so that there's no confusion. Then there's the issue of bad debts. I mentioned this one. It's again, that's poor record keeping. And we did mention last time that this PAP does sometimes what is called pre-financing. Pre-financing where the partner, like AWEPA or GIZ, they commit funds and then they say, because, please, can you spend your money as PAP? We are going to give you the money. Sometimes up to the end, that money doesn't come. So we've taken PAP money maybe from committees, we've allocated something else, thinking that we'll get money back. And then you end up with some of these bad debts. Then the issue of delay by management in responding to audit queries. Now, this one is a serious one. Both the external auditors lament this problem, the internal auditor also. In terms of the AU rules, if management are given a report by audit and say, can you comment? The rules say they should comment within 10 days. But it can be anything up to a month or two without, sometimes they never comment at all. And of course, nothing happens to them. So the problem persists in the PAP. Mr. President, I've tried, I may have left out something, but I've tried to touch on the main issues that have been raised. I would want to thank the members for the live debate and the interest and the commendation, the good words you have given to CAPA. Oh, thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Now we shall proceed quickly. 4 questions have emerged. I suggest to the plenary that the colleagues who feel skilled can come forward to deal with the issues. These are urgent issues. Regulation, the rules for staff, the manual of procedures, the organizational chart, and the financial investigation. These issues have to be now agreed upon. The volunteers who want to work on this and who can help us to improve the management of our finance. Can these people come forward? First, do we agree on the 4 items raised? I think, dear colleagues, that instead of having to go through a motion, and given the urgency of our work, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, but in our rules we say that the financial regulation is in the regulations and the rules of the African Union. Honorable, when we are going to suggest our internal rules, they have to we need these are internal rules and they are specific to our parliament, and we will defend this to the African Union. It is urgent to have our own procedures. We have also the procedures regarding staff, which in case of litigation, we send the issue to the African Union, and the procedures can be very long. Can we suggest something that can be internal procedures and that we can discuss with the African Union? Staff rules are similar to the ones applied in Addis Ababa, but there are organs which are elsewhere, but they are related to these rules. The legal council, for instance, is located in Addis Ababa. Is it possible to do this, to have our own procedures? I'm sorry. We need to show courage, and we need to bring a number of things here. We will discuss this with the African Union. That's not a problem. But we need to prepare our own organizational chart, staff rules, and the financial investigation I mentioned earlier. Mr. President.
We should not even over-debate this one. The rules that we do will make sure they are not inconsistent. That's the key word. They are not inconsistent with the AU rules, but they will take into account those gaps. Yes, sir. There are gaps because they don't talk of an MP, for example. Now, our rules will say there is a member of parliament. So it's not that our rules will contradict AU rules. No, they will have to be consistent. And Mr. President, key people here, CAPA Bureau, Finance Bureau, Rules Bureau, they need to meet and then take on from other committees that can also assist in this exercise. Because there are other brains outside the CAPA, finance or rules that can be very good in this work. And then let's not debate the names here. I think all we need to do is whether to go to approach, in my view, Dr. Ndidi, who is in charge of committees. People can go, those who want to assist can go to Dr. Ndidi and register. But at least finance, rules, and CAPA should take the lead. Thank you.
Honorable Motaga.
Honorable Motaga.
Let's not mix the issues. There are so many issues with this report. I'm suggesting let's first have a committee to investigate Egypt and maybe the supporting staff. Then we can also get CAPA, Finance Committee, and the Rules Committee to look at the other issues. But when we lump all of them together, if you are not careful, many of the issues will vanish. So I'm moving, with the indulgence of Mr. Speaker, that a 7-member committee of PAP members be constituted to investigate the 2016 third session in Egypt and all the issues that led to financial and operational lapses. That the committee should have a member from each of the regions, and at least 2 of them should be women. 3, that a clear policy on support staff engagement be developed for approval by the plenary, and that this committee be constituted before the end of this session next week. I beg to move. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ouais, Honorable Monji.
Honorable Monji.
Merci.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Excuse me, please. Okay. Monji is an commander. J'ai l'écran devant moi.
I have the screen in front of me.
Commander, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that the questions you have summed up are issues that require some expertise. These are very refined issues, particularly when it comes to the procedures, the organizational chart, and the like. Now, to give a potential solution requires sustainable work, and that requires skills. I suppose that to ask the plenary who wants to volunteer is a light decision to make. I suggest that this issue should be left with CAPA. Everyone interested in these issues and who is skilled and has the necessary expertise can apply. And in this way, we will have the possibility of identifying the appropriate team to address the issues you talked about. Honorable Kamanga.
Mr. President, honorable members.
Yes, you have the floor. Commander, you have the floor.
I still stand to second the motion moved by the MP from Ghana.
I support it.
Honorable.
And I apologize for my late arrival. Mr. President, I think we have a number of issues here which will need a couple of committees. I support wholeheartedly the Honorable Chair of CAPA, Chief Chirambira's suggestion that finance rules and CAPA get together to look at a very, very, very important issue, Mr. Chairman, rules and regulations for MPs. We are not recognized at the AU. That is why we are treated the way we are. We need to get our own rules and regulations adopted at the next summit in January so that we can all be recognized as MPs. So all the issues of flying economy class, not being taken care of, incorrect per diems, all of those issues will be sorted out. We need to do that as a matter of urgency. I support the honourable member from Ghana that we have a separate committee to look at Egypt and maybe other separate committees. But, Mr. President, to look after our own interests, we should put that as number one. And we need to get a committee together to look at the rules and regulations governing MPs under the AU. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, I want us to be more practical. We are here and we are left with 1 week. We have a calendar for the end of this year. We can create an ad hoc committee to investigate what happened and to report on it. I don't know why it is difficult to establish an investigation committee on this issue. On the problem of Sharm el-Sheikh and the other aspects you raised, choosing 5 members or 7 members to investigate the matter, does this really bother us to have an ad hoc committee to consider this? Should this be done by CAPA or the Finance Committee? What do you think?
Mr. President, I agree in total the proposal by Honorable Muntaka and Honorable Temple. It cannot be one committee. The Sharm el-Sheikh committee should be specific. It's a specific assignment that should follow up. This one on the manual, it should be separate from that other committee. And I think that is smart. The issue is whether we tend to appoint people in this room, or unless I endorse it, Muntaka has led it, is proposed, he should be in that committee, then we see whoever is fit him, then we move ahead. Thank you.
Ray?
Yes, dear colleague.
Mr. President, I think as we move, we need to follow the powers that we have as stipulated in our rules and the laws regarding this parliament. Mr. President, there are 2 issues here. Matters regarding members of parliament can be done by the committee. But matters regarding regulations and conditions of service for the staff cannot be done by members of parliament. Mr. President, I want to refer you to our rules, number 27, which stipulates the function of the Bureau, because there are many committees and there are many organs that are under a Pan-African Parliament. When you look at the Bureau, there are functions that are basically bestowed on the Bureau. When you go to D, 17D, that the Bureau shall determine the establishment, plan, and structure of the Secretariat and lay down regulations of the staff, including their terms and conditions of service. And this is a role that is bestowed to the Bureau. And this role cannot be removed from the Bureau. And when you look at the Secretariat itself, whereby we appoint the clerk and deputy, and they show allegiance to this parliament, And also we appoint the staff, and the staff also are to bear allegiance to the clerk. When you look at 6 of 20 regarding the secretariat, the terms and conditions of service and privileges and immunities enjoyed by the clerk, a deputy clerk, and other staff shall be determined by the Bureau on behalf of Parliament. So we cannot now say that it is now Bureau trying to abdicate their roles and their duties and then now subject that role to the plenary. I think that would be upside down. I think this Parliament should follow our rules properly. We should not do things in a haphazard manner, in an ad hoc manner. I want to appeal to this House that if this House is supposed to do the work that we are supposed to do, we must follow this Constitution. This is our Bible. This is what guides this House. So if we are doing things outside this book, these rules and procedure, then we are not proceeding well. Mr. President, I heard lately something being said that we cannot discipline our staff, we cannot control them because we have to wait from AU. That is not true at all. Our functions are already here, and these rules are part of the protocol. It is part of the protocol which is signed by the African Union, signed by the Assembly. The powers are already given to us, and we cannot abdicate our roles and our powers to any other organ. So as Parliament, as Pan-African Parliament, let us take our roles seriously and perform. I want to appeal, especially about investigations. How do we do investigations? First of all, we have internal audit. Then we have external audits. And where there are queries, that's where CAPA now comes in. Where there are queries on issues regarding our accountability of Pan-African Parliament, that is when the CAPA comes in. But this one, to be specific, it is regarding Sam al-Sheikh. I agree with him that if we are to move, we need to have a lean committee, because matters are not really very big. It is very specific. There are payments that were made, there are double payments that were made. So let us verify, and that does not mean any science to do it. So we need to have very lean members. We give them the time limit to do that role, and it will not take us time. So, Mr. President, I want to appeal to this House, if we are to move, let's use this and get our power back. The power that we have abdicated to other committees, to other organs, get it back, and let us follow clearly what is stipulated in this book. I thank you, Mr. President.
Merci, Monsieur. Thank you, dear colleague. I think that we are here and we are talking about two things. We have a practice and we have our internal rules. We know what internal rules are all about. The major problem we are facing here, and Honorable Conde raised this issue, is the following. PAP was established as a department of the African Union. That's the problem. What you are saying is good. But the AU staff rules apply here. I don't know. In practice, the decisions of the African Union prevail. And the PAP was established as an outgrowth of the African Union. We need to have our own mechanisms. Theory is simple to understand. What matters is practice and reality. I agree that on Sharm el-Sheikh and other specific issues, we can create a small committee to address this. Can you please wait till I finish?
It's an issue of procedure.
Please, this is a parliament that is guided by rules. Once there is a motion on ground, and you have to rule it so that we have to proceed from there. But the way things are happening in this place, there is an issue on ground, we have not trashed it, somebody will stand up, bring something issue, you will take us backward. I think we will stay here for long. Mr. President, there is a motion on ground that somebody has seconded. Can we dispense of it? We continue with it and then we move forward. Mr. President, this is my observation.
La motion a été posée.
The motion was suggested, it was seconded, and we will consider it. As regards the organizational chart, I said that the Bureau had decided on this to have CAPA and the Rules Committee. I see no further comments on the report. The report is adopted. We have come to the end of our deliberations this morning. Let me recall the following. Dear colleagues, allow me to recall the following. Tomorrow, we will have the conference on women's rights. Tomorrow, we will have the conference on women's rights. This is included in our order of business. This is not an optional event. I would like to invite all the honorable members to be here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to attend the opening ceremony of the Conference on Women's Rights. I will chair the opening ceremony. I would like to invite you to attend the proceedings that will last from the 12th to the 13th of October. That's all said now. Now the session stands adjourned. We shall resume. Now, time for announcement from the clerk.
Thank you, Honorable President. Honorable members, the caucus for the youth will meet in room 3 from 2 o'clock. The Bureau of the Women Caucus will meet in room 6 from 3:30.
The Bureau of the Women Caucus. The Bureau of the Women Caucus.
The following committees will meet as follows from 3:30. The Committee on Transport, Industry, Communications, Energy and Technology will meet in room 5. The Committee on Rules, Privileges and Discipline will meet in room 4.